We've been thinking about having a chat about all things to do with supervision for a while and planned this session. And it really is a shame, Annette, that we have our dear friend Carey has got caught up in something else this afternoon and hasn't been able to be on this call. But it is really great to be able to consider the journey that the three of us have been on. So let's just start with where it began.
Well, it began like in 2011, and that was the first time I heard about this concept of coaching supervision. And, you know, the wonderful Alison Hodge was out here from the UK in Sydney, and she ran a session, and all the coaches that were there, all very experienced coaching, were going, what is this thing called coaching supervision? And then it sort of put me on this path of wanting to learn about what is this concept. And it was very new in the coaching world at that time. And at the similar time, I learned about solution focus. And after I'd done that, I thought, you know what, there would be a really good way of combining both solution focus and coaching supervision. And I wanted to learn more. There was no one in the world that was doing it at that time, because I did a whole lot of research, and it was back in the day that with growth coaching, and we had a lot of coaches who we wanted to oversee their work, but do it in a really respectful way. And so it wasn't until I found these wonderful guys in Brisbane, Unique Outcomes, and they were doing solution focused supervision for social workers. And I went along to one of their programs and was absolutely sold on this approach, because I knew at that time I didn't want it to be like psychologist way of supervision, that I wanted it to be very much a respectful way of how we reflect on our practice. And having done this course with Paul and David, that's right, from Unique Outcomes, it was like, yeah, that's it. That's the way we need to do it. So it was very much then bringing it back to have a conversation with you and Carey about, you know, there's something in this. We need to do something like this for the coaches at growth coaching.
Yeah, I remember that. And then Carey and I went to that program as well. So that gave us the basis to begin a conversation together, which has really proceeded over the years. And I remember too, you've used that word supervision right from the beginning. We knew that we didn't want to use the word supervision because at the time, you know, it was not a concept that was used with us in coaching.
Yes.
And it seemed to carry a meaning from what we understood of it, you know, in the therapy world, that just really didn't fit with us. And so as we then began to evolve our first work in this space, and it was about working with groups of our coaches, that's how we came to focus on the term reflective practice as a choice term, rather than talking about supervision. You know?
Yes. And the reflective practice was we had these tools that we used, didn't we? You know, in terms of guided us through a process of facilitating the reflective practice or / supervision as a group. And we'd have 5 individuals being involved reflecting on their practice. And it was a lovely entry point, wasn't it, in terms of how you made it safe, you know, to explore your practice. Yeah, and then we moved on, didn't we? Then we moved on to going, you know, let's actually become coach supervisors, because we've been actually doing it for a number of years in the group setting. So why not get qualified in it?
Yeah, and then we discovered that as we were also steeped in solution-focused practice, that there just was not a course that we could go and study with anybody about it.
Yes.
So, being precocious people that we are, we put a proposition to the European Mentoring Coaching Council that if we were to immerse ourselves in further reading, because we'd all done an extensive course at the University of Wisconsin on solution focus approaches, then if we really delved into it and did work with some eminent solution focused coach supervisors who are already practitioners, if we did work with them, then would that be appropriate? And so when we got the green light that yes, that would be a way of us showing our learning, we could then proceed, and that's what we did.
Yes. And it was really an action learning approach, wasn't it? Rather than going through a course, it was really around looking at the readings, reading up on books around, coaching, supervision and solution focus. And as you said, working with some of those key people around, we were in a group supervision setting, weren't we, with these people? So wonderful Hey Sun Moon, Jill McNaught, and also we'd done courses with Alison Hodge as well in terms of group supervision. So yes, and the result of that over 18 months, 2 years, we did that.
18 months,
and we got supervision on our supervision as a group, and individual supervision we did for each other, and then we got accredited with the
and we also published an article. We published an article along with our accreditation. So that's where we've got to be here, where we are now. So perhaps if we can have a bit of thinking now about, the kind of the learning, some key elements of the learning that we've gained. Because we began with the fundamental understanding that to be a really effective coach, you needed to be able to reflect on your work. Yes, you could go off and learn more about coaching, do different workshops and so on, and that was one avenue you had. But you also needed to be able to reflect on the work you were doing as a coach and use that as a frame for be able to learn from through your reflection on your work.
Yes.
So I'm just thinking, what would you say would be like key understandings that we've gained about the place of reflection and in supervision? What's the connection there?
I think the connection is, two things come to mind. One is, how do you reflect with others? But then also, how do you reflect in action when you're a coach? So I sort of relate it to an elite athlete. They work with a coach to help them prepare for their event. But when they're in the event, you want them to self-reflect and self-correct in action. And I think that's the key concept here, that when enabling coaches to reflect in action so they can get even better and notice things that happens in the interaction, as well as doing it outside of the actual with a client, reflecting on what works, what successes they've had, but also what challenges, and what can they do to make their practice even better.
Whether it be with several people together or with one other person.
Yes.
But that engagement with others actually heightens understanding and therefore the capacity to reflect in the moment.
Yes. So we're talking about a few different ways of doing it. So one is the way that we set it up for when we're all working together on those reflective practice groups, where you have 5 people reflect and all having a turn. And that's very much led by, a facilitator or a coach supervisor in that group context. But then you've got peer supervision, which is very much around coaches doing it for each other, but still can be in a group setting, you know, and they take it in turns to facilitate the learning that's happening. And then there's the
or you can have then individual supervision, which
Yes.
seems in a way funny because you're saying individual, because in actual fact there are two people.
Yes.
Because one is the supervisor, has
Yes.
that role, and the other person is the coach.
Yes.
And that is, you know, a relationship then in which the supervisor is supporting the coach to be able to think about their work. So the focus of the conversation is on the work that is being done.
Yes, yes. And so, Di, from your perspective, what is solution-focused coaching supervision?
Well, the thing that really stands out for me that is so clear here is that the supervisor comes to coaching to support the coach to think about their work there. And so the supervisor typically, because we've been through it, has huge experience, huge knowledge and understanding of coaching. So therefore the question becomes, how does the supervisor use their expertise? Yes. So the expertise of the supervisor is used in shaping the questions and assisting the coach in focusing on aspects of their work that are, you know, that are really significant. Now, I can think of an example when you've supervised me, where I put forward a video of a section of work with a question that I had, but it was your questioning of me that helped me see the bits I'd missed. And that even if I think I'd watched that again several times myself, certain things I don't think I would have picked up. It was the questioning that came from you, your set of eyes looking at what I was doing, that helped me see what else I could do. So the expertise of the supervisor is in the service of the person who is being supervised. And that's the thing that I really love, because it puts the sense of agency, empowerment with the person who is, you know, being supervised.
Yes. And it was you that decided what you wanted the supervision on. So it's very much the guide on the side rather than, you know, that quote, the sage on the stage. So we're wanting to be the guide on the side. So even though the coach supervisor has expertise, they still have a beginner's mind, you know, around how you do it and what seems to work for you. And what is it that you want to reflect on that will help you be even better? So the principle around you're not broken, you're doing good work, you know, and how do you help the coach see what they're doing that's working so that they can build upon it.
Yes, I think that is absolutely true. And I think another aspect of it is it's about how we bring our understanding of building trust and relationship is really profoundly important, because exploring your work in this minute way means that you are really vulnerable. You've got to, you know, you come with a real openness to discover, and so therefore you need to be in a space where there's not judgment, because often a question can be, what could I have done more of, or what could I have done differently? And when you realize sometimes, like I know I have, where you realize, oh my goodness, I missed that, then it's about, well, how do you work with that? But you know, when you think, yes, I could have done something different. So the relationship, I think, with the supervisor, you know, just like we have in coaching, is really, you know, really significant in it being effective. Yeah.
And I think, touching on what you've just said, that's why this way of supervision, the solution-focused way, we rely on video footage, you know, or a transcript. So it's what actually happened rather than talking from memory of what happened, and what you did in your session with me was you selected a 10-minute section of your coaching to actually reflect on. You decided what we're going to look at. So very much the coach is in the driver's seat of the process, not me critiquing your video of what you've done. It's more you're in the driver's seat. You decide which element of your coaching you want to explore and reflect on,
Yeah.
and it could just be a 1-minute segment, of what happened in that 1 minute, that you want to really look at. And that's an important distinction with this approach. It's very much show me what you do rather than talk about what you do. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
And that's powerful for the coach, isn't it, to see yourself in action?
Oh, it is not till you see yourself that do you fully realize what it is that the person you're working with is interacting with, and you do not, even though you're being kind, you're building, you want to build trust and so on, those things, but it's not till you watch yourself doing it that you actually realize how you go about doing it. And then of course that builds your confidence and your capability, because you truly know and understand why you do what you do. And that just gives you, well, it's certainly given me much more confidence to be able to, and belief. It's more than confidence. It is just this innate belief that in the moment I will know what to do. I don't doubt that. Even if in the moment I realize I don't know, and I have to stop and say, I don't know what to do now. But there is, just a total belief that moment will move and something will emerge from it. Yeah.
Yes. I suppose the other aspect, we talked about video, but the other approach that works in solution-focused coaching supervision is doing a transcript of what did you say as a coach, and how did they respond, the coachee respond, and looking at that transcript, and again, we sort of make it a 10-minute segment. Then the supervision can be around, looking at what did you select? What did you select out of what the coachee said to inquire into? And I remember that being a real eye-opener for all of us when we work with Hey Sun Moon, and we did the tag teaming, coaching, and we'd all missed what the client wanted, and when we looked at the transcript, we could see we totally missed inquiring into that, and so that was such powerful learning for me, by just looking at moment by moment what's been said and what's been selected out to inquire into, because there's always many other options you could take as well. It was incredibly insightful.
Exactly. And I think also we do recognize that we use the term verbatim, that's occasionally a verbatim approach of writing out, what happened, or sharing something that happened, actually has a really important place in supervision too, because when you choose to record a session to take to supervision, you don't know what's going to happen in that session. But sometimes there's a moment in your coaching or something that emerges in the conversation, in a coaching conversation, and you wonder about it later. You couldn't record it. I mean, you didn't know it was going to happen, so you didn't record it. But it is something that you think, I really would like to be able to talk about this with my supervisor, just to think through, how did I deal with this? That was, a bit of a challenge in the moment. And yes, that's always a reflection back. We haven't got the exact words. We've only got our memory. But, that does help us at times for those moments when we just want to seek that conversation with an other to help us think through how that went.
It just reminded me of, where we've come over this 11-year journey, that now supervision is an industry standard, and I love this way that we're doing it because it's such a respectful way of how, you help people reflect. So I'm wondering for you, Di, what do you see the benefits are for coaches to seek supervision?
Well, yeah, I really see significant benefits. One is a sense of community. Now, and that comes, even in the relationship with one, but within group, it it gives us a space where you can be safe. I sort of alluded to this a little while ago, and be vulnerable. And when we do it with a group, that has real benefits that you hear from several people, and it helps you have the confidence that, oh, I'm not alone. This isn't
Mm,
something that's just happened to me.
mm,
I can see this happening with others.
mm,
And so that gives you that sense of sort of personal security. But I also think that, this is one of the, I think, the real advantage of the group or peer opportunities is that because you are in that space where you're all thinking and sharing together, and you can be safe, because it's safe in the sense that there's no right answer. You're putting forward suggestions that the other person might use. Because there is that real sense of connectedness together, it enables you to be very creative, to come up with all sorts of possibilities that could be tried. And certainly now, as a facilitator of group reflective practice, I've seen that happen, and people be quite amazed at the ideas that have come forward. And I
mm.
think that happens when people really feel that they can explore ideas in a very expansive way, and new ideas of how you might approach something come up that are quite surprising to other people, and take people into some quite, extended
Yeah.
spaces of learning. So I see it having all of that kind of advantage. So what sort of benefits do you see?
Well, I think of particularly in group supervision where you have a variety of levels of experience coaches in the group. So, your beginner coaches can learn so much from the more experienced ones. But everyone tends to learn, from one aspect of someone's practice. Generally, everyone else has experienced a similar thing. And I think about a group I had last week. One of the topics that came up, and she was wanting to shop for ideas, one of the tools that we use in group supervision. And hers was imposter syndrome. She said, because she's relatively new, I'm not really fully living into this new role as coach, and so how have others done it? And so the rest of the group were able to share how they build themselves up, how they feel like they're capable and competent. And so I love the sharing that happens with wherever people are on their journey of being a coach, whether it's the beginner, someone who's been doing it a while, or the very experienced. We all can learn off each other.
That's right. And it really extends you. I'm reflecting now on some emails I've had recently from several individuals whom I've recently done, some individual supervision with. And they say, you push me so far. And I think, well, did I? So it's the questions you ask, to not, not tell them something called the answer, but by drawing their attention to some aspect of their work, and framing some question around it that can take them, not because I have a sense about you need to go to this point, you need to understand, but it helps them go to other internal resources and other possibilities. So we come out of these sessions just feeling that our learning has really been stretched. And so that's what I think the great advantage of it is. You don't stand still in your coaching. It's always, supervision is challenging you to move forward.
And
I think one thing you go on.
I was just going to say how reflecting on your own practice, either in a group setting or one-to-one, it then helps you self-reflect in action when you are doing your own coaching, and you can self-correct or come up with other ideas that have come from your supervision sessions. But that's what we're after. In action, how do you reflect on, that question didn't quite work, how can I readjust and ask something else? But if we're not conscious and haven't done that reflection beforehand, we generally miss those points. Yeah,
exactly. And the nanosecond choice that we make when we hear people say, certain things, our listening, the reflection, the thinking in the moment that leads us to make it, to feedback. What is it that we feed back to the person, or that we ask a question about? That is the acuity that it helps develop, that in the moment capacity to reflect on what is happening and to choose the question or the process that we're going to, that we put back to the person. That, I think, is what you're saying. Yeah. I think that makes a really rather nice circle, Annette. We've kind of come back to the beginning. And so perhaps just the final comment is, I think that it is really pleasing to see now that we feel comfortable about using the word supervision. At the beginning, it just, so many years ago, it just didn't fit with what the coaching world was about. But now it is an appropriate word that does say what we're on about in this space. So,
exactly. Yeah. And we'd be encouraging coaches to, really take up coaching supervision, whether in an individual way or a group way. But the three of us are also passionate about the solution-focused way of doing supervision, because just how respectful it is. Yeah. And it's an industry standard now, 35 hours of coaching, we should be having 1 hour of coaching supervision. And I think that's what's the word I'm looking for? Expected, if you're a professional coach, that you do this. Yeah. And it's great for your learning. And I love the quote, I view my practice as an ongoing apprenticeship, by Michael White, who was a supervisor of therapists and social workers. And I love that quote, because you never quite arrive at mastery. There's always tweaking and getting better at your craft that you can do. So that's why we do it. Yeah.
Exactly. So there's always more to learn. So perhaps it's a good place for us to end this.
Yes. Thank you. I love the conversation.